So, here is how to make, really good fire starters. And I'm using, what I have here is dryer-lint. And again, the object is light and fluffy stuff, dry, fluffy stuff, easy ignitable. Again, that could be cotton balls, which essentially is what it is. Other types of fabric, all kinds of stuff in here. Basically, it's just dryer-lint, but it could be straight up cotton balls. It could be dandelion fluff, cattail down, goat's beard fluff, all kinds of stuff, and anything that's like light and fluffy like this. And what we want to do is, I have a not milk carton. We have egg carton here, empty egg carton. And what we want to do is we're just going to take up these little lint pieces here, just kind of break them and mix them up. So there's all kinds in there. And we're going to set them in each one of the compartments here, like so. And what we're going to do then is we've got some tallow, which is melting on the stove. And tallow is basically beef fat that has been rendered down. And tallow is very good as a candle, as a wax substitute. You can make candles out of it. You can make lamps, lanterns out of it. It's really versatile that way. It's a lubricant. It's edible, so you can make what's known as pemmican out of it. You can cook with it. And the thing is, as long as it is rendered down properly, it will not go bad. It doesn't go rancid. But again, it's got to be beef fat, not chicken fat, not poultry fat, not pork fat. It's got to be beef. And you can get it at the store. It's called suet, S-U-E-T, I believe. And you just take that, chop it up, and render it down in a frying pan. So yeah, we're just taking bits of lint here, and we're just filling this up. And these are going to be nice fire starters, or things that are going to help get a fire going. And the convenient thing is that these are in little compartments inside of the milk carton here, which is flammable. And what we do is, once we've poured over the tallow and or wax, that can work too, then we can cut them apart, and we have these little compartmentalized things that we can distribute out against various different locations and packs, and keep a couple in your car and stuff like that. So these are really handy to have around, especially for camping. Just go ahead and use up all these. Alright, this is my little double boiler system here, and this is just an old, container, cheese container, in a pot with some water. And what it's going to do is it's just going to boil down this tallow that I have. It's previously used tallow in there, and it'll boil it down so we can pour it over our lint balls. So it'll just be a few minutes for that. Again, tallow is known as suet at the store. If you hunt big game, like deer or elk, moose, that sort of thing, you want to harvest their fat, because you can use that fat as tallow. And basically, you take the suet or the raw fat, and you render it down in a frying pan, and get rid of all of the meat particles. So you really want to strain it really, really well. And by getting rid of the meat particles, the pieces of meat and the pieces of membrane that doesn't render down, what you're doing is you're going to make this product so that it doesn't spoil. And this has been sitting around for months, and it has no smell or anything like that at all. So again, tallow is good as a lubrication, as a food source, as a light source, because it can be used in the place of wax, for making candles and lanterns and lamps. What else can you do with it? It's good to mix for natural camouflage if you have ashes or other colored minerals to make natural camo that'll stick to your body and it'll be waterproof. So there's just all kinds of good uses. So that's what tallow is. It's basically beef suet, and it's rendered down beef, not pork, not chicken or fish. It's gotta be beef, or it's from that family of animal, bovine of some sort. Cud chewer or something like that. So that's what tallow is. Okay, so we have our tallow melted down, and this isn't too hot, so I'm going to lift this up and carefully pour this into my measuring cup with a spout. That'll be sure that we can pour this properly. Okay, now all we have to do is just carefully give each one of these some tallow. Like so, and I already have some kind of fluffy stuff in here, so that's only going to help. Alright. Make sure this isn't leaking. I should probably put a newspaper underneath here so keep making a mess. But at any rate, that's what you have here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this to get solid. You can possibly put this in the refrigerator or the freezer if you want to expedite the process. But when these get solid, we'll demonstrate how these burn. Okay, so we're back. These have been sitting in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes or so, and they're hard and pretty much ready to use and store. You don't have to keep them in the refrigerator at all. They'll stay hard as long as they're not melted. You might want to keep them in a bag or something, plastic bag or something like that, in case wherever you're keeping them gets overwarm. You don't want them a mess when you don't want to discover a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these out of the carton, and basically you just kind of get the carton here. I think I can just rip the cap off. Otherwise, before you rip them, you can always just store them just like this and store them someplace until you're ready to use them up. But for this demo, I'm going to go ahead and just cut them apart using a pair of kitchen shears. Put that aside. And then what we do is I'm just going to cut down just like so. And then just cut like that. So what you end up having is these nice little compartmentalized little fire starter pieces. Okay, and what we're going to do with these is we can just set these quickly on a pan and just light one up and see what kind of light we get and how readily this fires up. Okay, so I just have a pan here with some aluminum foil and a handy dandy fire extinguisher here in case things get out of control. I don't suspect they would. I'll keep this over here within reach. And basically, you want to take your fire starter like this, and you kind of want to pull up any little bits of lint. Okay, and the reason why is you're going to use that as a wick. All right, so you don't need to douse these. You don't need to make these complete like a block of tallow. Okay, it's just you're just needing a little bit of tallow in there as fuel and accelerant to keep it going, but you really want to have some pieces that you can kind of pull up that are dry and fluffy. Okay, so we'll just take our lighter that's got some duct tape wrapped around it, and handy to have that, and we can go ahead and light that up. Okay. Maybe a little too cold for it. Go ahead and keep this going a little bit. So it looks like it's gonna take for us. It's gonna take a little bit. Okay, I think we've got something going here. This will probably burn for a while, and again, this is when you would start building your fire around it gently, you know, starting with very small twigs, and then going up to pencil size, then going up to finger size, and then eventually, you know, 2 or 3 finger size, then eventually, you know, like arm width, you know, your arm diameter rather. So you always start small when you're building your fire. What people tend to do when they're building fires is they want to just pile on a bunch of stuff. Well, you know, fire needs friction, it needs oxygen, and it needs fuel. If you put too much of debris or wood, even though you would expect it to ignite, sometimes all it does is it suffocates the fire. So you kind of have to gently kind of stoke it. All right, and add little bits at a time and let those catch, and then as that gets gained strength, then you can add more and larger pieces until you actually have a roaring fire. That's how you should build a fire, using one of these. So as you can see, it's going pretty good now. And again, like I said, for safety's sake, I wouldn't recommend, you know, you try this at home or rather inside. I'm doing this for demo purposes, and I got some water behind me, and I also have my handy dandy fire extinguisher. So again, I don't recommend you try this in the house. It's best to go outside, or if you have a fireplace, that's something you can use. Kids, don't be doing this without your parents' supervision. All right. So that's going pretty good now, and that's providing actually some pretty decent heat. So I'm gonna just let this film, and let's keep rolling and let this kind of burn out. And but for the most part, this is basically how you make some tallow fire starters out of lint and tallow. Okay, that's smoldering, so I'm gonna go put this out so it doesn't set off the fire alarms in the house and things. But this is essentially it. This will burn pretty good.